This is Northwest Newsweek. Thanks for being with us. Cable subscribers in Longlac are in the midst of a programming blackout, but not because of service cuts or preempted shows. Instead, it's due to a fire at the receiver station in that community. And as Adam Riley reports, those residents could be waiting a while before being able to tune in to their regularly scheduled programs.
For the past week, cable subscribers in Longlac have been getting reception like this. That's after a fire tore through the receiver station in that community on February 8th, destroying all of the equipment. According to Astrocom Cablevision President John Emmons, approximately 200 subscribers have been affected by the fire.
I was at a Legion executive meeting on Thursday night, and one of the fire department people came to the Legion, called me aside and told me that my head end in Longlac had burned down.
A head end is a room of servers, receivers, and scramblers that collects and distributes television signals to customers. Aside from reaching out to the insurance company and equipment companies for information regarding replacement equipment, Emmons says he has been left relatively in the dark in the investigation.
We've learned nothing so far. I haven't even visited the site myself yet because I heard from the fire department it was cordoned off.
Are you concerned that, this may have been criminal in some sense? Or?
Well, that was the impression I got from the fire department, that the police wanted to investigate the scene. But I haven't heard anything since then.
TBT News reached out to the OPP, who say all they provided during the incident was traffic control in the area, and officials with Greenstone's fire department say they are not pursuing an investigation at this time. Emmons started Astrocom Cablevision back in the 1970s, which provides service to residents in Longlac as well as Geraldton who were not affected. Emmons says he is heartbroken over the situation.
How does this make you feel, though?
Well, pretty down, really, because I worked very hard to build that system up. I brought television there when no one else could, and now it's gone.
At this time, Emmons is unable to say what it would cost to rebuild, purchase, and install brand new equipment here at the site in Longlac. And as for a timeline, that's completely dependent upon those conducting the investigation into the fire and the insurance company. Adam Riley, TBT News.
A public information session has now been scheduled regarding a potential alternate access route across the Nipigon River. The need for a secondary route became apparent in January 2016 when the new Nipigon River Bridge failed in the cold weather. The Trans-Canada Highway was closed for about 17 hours and concerns were raised about the lack of an alternative route for highway traffic. The Ministry of Transportation pledged to search for other options, and WSP Canada was hired to develop alternatives for crossing the river. The company will hold the first of 4 public open houses on March 1st at the Nipigon Community Centre. The company has released a map showing the study area, but no detour options have been identified so far. The study is scheduled to be complete by the end of 2019. The province's Special Investigations Unit has terminated its investigation into a serious injury sustained by a 24-year-old man arrested by Atikokan OPP. Back in December, the man attended the Atikokan Hospital after being released from an OPP cell and was found to have suffered a serious injury. But the SIU's director says there is no evidence any police officer caused that injury, and as a result, the SIU has ended its inquiries in the case. Meanwhile, Ontario's Special Investigations Unit has cleared an OPP officer of any criminal wrongdoing in connection with the arrest of a man in Sioux Lookout in 2016. The 27-year-old complainant had alleged he suffered a broken collarbone because officers handcuffed him aggressively when they arrested him for breaching a court order. The SIU interviewed 5 civilian witnesses, including people who had seen the man outside a local homeless shelter the day of his arrest. The director determined there's no evidence the complainant's injuries were caused by the officers who arrested him. They man Canada's borders, keeping the country safe from harm. But for nearly 4 years now, border agents have been doing the job without a contract. Unionized border services staff rallied across the country Monday, including here in the Northwest, to demand fair negotiations with Canada Border Services. Shaoli Lee has more.
What do we want? Contract! When do we want it? Now!
It's a demand border officers have made for the last 3 years and 8 months. New contracts that would give them what other law enforcement services already receive. Members of the Customs and Immigration Union, part of the Public Service Alliance of Canada, rallied in front of the Border Services office on May Street as they await a federal arbitrator's findings. The union agreed to non-binding arbitration last year. Union rep Andrew Weersma says he hopes Border Services will take the arbitrator's findings seriously the next time the sides meet.
So we will try to bargain again, and what we're asking the employer to do is come to the table seriously and meet some of our demands. Let's talk about them, because thus far they have not.
Weersma says members want their salaries to be brought in line with other law enforcement services. They also want the right to retire after 25 years service and protections against replacing border agents with machines. Weersma adds some of those demands are already standard for other agencies like the RCMP. Canadian Border Service officers are considered an essential service, but do have the right to conduct a partial strike. While the border wouldn't shut down in the event of a strike, Weersma says work-to-rule actions are possible.
There's a percentage of us that will be essential in a strike position if we get to that point. We would never put Canadians at risk. Their safety is paramount. That's our job. We're proud to do our job. However, some non-essential things would have to go, like duties and taxes. We wouldn't be collecting them.
The Federal Public Sector Labor Board's Public Interest Commission heard the union's arguments in November, but it's still not clear when that non-binding arbitrator's report would be released. In a statement to Dougal Media, Canada Border Services says contract negotiations between the union and Treasury Board are ongoing, and it would be inappropriate to comment. Xiaoli Li, TVT News.
It's well known that northwestern Ontario has an aging population, and many municipalities across the region are trying to find solutions to allow residents to continue living in their communities. Last year, Marathon entered into an agreement with CGV Developments out of Cochrane and is currently in the construction phase of a $10 million 35-unit supporting housing complex that's set to be completed this fall. Now, Atikokan is looking into a similar development with the same company. Mayor Dennis Brown says the town already has a drop-in center for seniors, but when it comes to housing, they're left with two choices: stay in their homes or move out of the community.
This has been an issue in Atikokan for many years. We need more seniors apartments, seniors housing. And if we can do it so a combination of supportive and so on, then it'll be a lot easier. So the first step was to have a survey done to see how many seniors are interested in doing that.
Brown says the town received only 60 responses from the public. They now face a series of challenges from those responses, the biggest being they need to find a mortgage holder for the property and residents not wanting to move into the facility unless they can sell their houses in town. A long-standing boil water advisory is finally over for residents of the Slate Falls First Nation just north of Sioux Lookout. For the past 14 years, community members have been told to boil their water before drinking it. But this week, Chief Lorraine Crane and Indigenous Services Minister Jane Philpott announced the advisory had been lifted following the completion of a new water treatment plant. The federally funded plant cost $11.6 million. And as budget season continues across the Northwest, members of Fort Frances Council are sitting down to look at both their operating and capital budgets. As Adam Riley reports, this year the primary focus is on the aging infrastructure in their community.
The capital budget will come in somewhere around $10 million. The operations are around a $21 million operation.
$31 million. That is what councillors and administration for the town of Fort Frances are looking at for the community's 2018 budget. CAO Doug Brown says council's main goal is to have a balanced budget, and doing so can be a tedious task, making sure the wants and needs of the municipality are covered appropriately. According to Brown, 50% of the town's revenue, or roughly $11 million, comes from the taxpayers.
We basically went through the capital budget. When they were presented the document on January 5th, it was worth about $18 million. I'm just going to round the numbers up. We went through what administration from the January 5th prioritized. Then we went down and had a high, medium, and low. And people had an opportunity last September to submit things that they thought that had to be done in the community, infrastructure stuff.
Brown says those infrastructure projects include fixing up roads in the community and expanding upon the improvements made to the 200 block of Scott Street further into the 300 block, as well as an overhaul of the overpass near the east entrance to the town. Brown says administration is looking for funding options from higher levels of government through the connecting link for that project.
That structure is 35 years old. It's time for the first rebuild. So we've put it in 2 applications. We were denied last year in 2017. We are thinking we're going to see funding announcements during the Ontario Good Roads Association General Conference at the 3rd week in February. So we should know about that. We have to kick in 10%, where 90% is funded by MTO.
Brown adds the second funding application is for a water main to provide fire protection to that area. The next budget meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, February the 20th. Brown says council will be reviewing the budget further after that date and hopes to have it completed sometime in April. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Coming up after the break, residents in Nakina left wondering what will happen now that the only grocery store in town will be closing its doors. An update now on a story that we brought you last week. Starting April 1st, residents of Nakina will be forced to make the 90-minute round trip on Highway 584 to Geraldton for groceries. This after it was announced that the Northern store in Nakina will be closing its doors on March 31st. Molly Fromer has details.
On February 6th, employees at Nakina's Northern store learned the operation would be closing shop permanently on March 31st. In a release dated February 6th, Northern's parent firm, the Northwest Company, says the Nakina location is no longer sustainable and calls the decision to close a difficult one. The store, which is the only major retailer in the community, provides more than just essentials like groceries. It also carries furniture, electronics, and sporting goods. With the closure, residents in Nakina and many remote First Nations will have to make alternative arrangements. Nakina resident Janice Jacob says she was bothered by the timeline given for the closure and has a few concerns for residents.
There's a lot of time we can't get to Geraldton, especially in the winter if the weather's bad and you need your milk or your bread. I know there's a little convenience store, but that's not always open. Why does it have to go? It's the only grocery store we have in town. We don't have a restaurant. Our restaurant's gone. We're losing everything we had.
Jacob says she worries about the seniors and other vulnerable residents in the community who are unable to make the 120-kilometer round trip to nearby Geraldton. The closure will also have an impact on many First Nations in the area. According to Martin Falls Band Councillor Russell Ashley Penenscombe, many entrepreneurs in his community will have to find other places to sell their wares.
People that trapped back home, they come in, put their pelts here, like Martin Beaver and and rats and otters and whatever they catch, they sell them in the northern store for many years.
Greenstone Mayor Ron Bolu says the announcement of the closure came as a shock to him, considering the economic progress that has been made in the community in recent months.
Geraldton had the bay, which basically the northern. Longlac had the bay. They closed many years ago. Northern Store recognized in Ikena the importance of keeping their store open. And I, for myself, was very confident that the fact that, you know, with the Nikina sawmill restarting, thought that this was definitely a great opportunity, you know, for this store to survive.
Still, Bolu is confident for the future development in the community.
One thing we have to understand is that, and I did say this on the radio, I think this opens up an opportunity, though, for a private business to look at the grocery business in the Nikina area.
Molly Fromer, 2BT News.
The Ministry of Natural Resources is relocating more of the caribou from Mishpecotton Island on Lake Superior. Last month, the MNR successfully transferred 9 caribou to the Slate Islands near Terrace Bay. 8 cows and 1 bull were sedated, then airlifted by a helicopter to join the few bulls already living there. This time, at least 6 animals are on the move to Caribou Island, which currently does not have any caribou living there. The survival of the 100 caribou on Mishpecotton Island is being threatened by a large wolf population. Biologists hope that transferring the animals to other islands will help ensure the survival of the Lake Superior caribou herd. It's a place where Indigenous and non-Indigenous high school students can meet, talk, share ideas, and learn more about each other. And this week, Superior Collegiate's Aboriginal Student Committee received a special gift from the White Sand First Nation Band Council. Counselors donated $1,000 to the student committee to continue its work at Superior. The Aboriginal Student Committee was formed around 2 years ago to provide a space for students, particularly those from remote communities. The Band Council visited the students on Tuesday and spoke about the importance of education and having clear goals to aim for. There are 10 White Sand Bound members on the committee, and Councillor Alex Wanakameg says that's how they heard about their work.
I felt proud, for one thing, because it shows me and it tells me that our future looks good. So when we see a group like this working with not just Indigenous people but non-Indigenous, it's one of the things that we're trying to fix in this country, and it takes steps, and this is one of them.
When I first got here, I had nowhere to go. I didn't really know anybody. These were the only people I knew, and they were my go-to. It made me feel a lot more safe. It made me feel better. I had guidance. So I think it's a really good thing that we have this here for students that come into Thunder Bay from northern communities or even anywhere.
Members of the Aboriginal Student Committee say the money will go towards projects that celebrate Indigenous culture. In the past, the committee was held regular events like bake sales and school powwows. Meanwhile, students at Nor'Wester View School got their hands dirty Friday, extending a helping hand to a rural community. In partnership with Armstrong Public School, all 3 of Nor'Wester's learning academies tackled their Big Build project, where kids help rebuild and repair bicycles using old and unused bike parts. Over 80 students were working away in the transportation technology shop at Sir Winston Churchill High School, tearing down and refurbishing 30 bicycles that will be sent to Armstrong. Lakehead schools banded together to raise over $700 through bake sales to fund the cost of new parts needed to complete the repairs. 8th grader Rachel Perzan says the experience was fulfilling and most of all educational.
It's a good life experience, like good life lessons. We've been learning like how to break a chain, how you can fix pedals, like how to take the chain off.
What we're trying to do is our bike is decorated with stickers, so we have the flash on the front of ours, so we want to make sure the person who gets that gets the fastest bike.
You know what, they've responded well. Our students are amazing. They love the opportunity to be challenged. They'd like to really push their thinking, and to give them an opportunity to give back to a community is something that they really take to heart, and they really love doing that.
Cooperative X and Fresh Air Experience provided staff to give the lessons on bike repairs to the students. Nor'Wester View and Armstrong plan to extend their repair services to the White Sand and Gull Bay First Nation communities. Well, another quick break, but coming up next, Northwestern Ontario's own goes for gold at the 2018 Winter Olympics. Well, Balmertown is living up to its golden reputation this week, and not just in the mines, but on the skating rinks almost 10,000 kilometers away at the Pyeongchang Winter Olympics. That's where Olympic athlete and Balmertown native Eric Radford and his partner Megan Duhamel scored a gold medal and a bronze medal in the team and individual pair events.
On its own was like just, higher than it's ever been in pair skating in the world. So, it took a big skate from us, one of our best, to earn this medal.
After a 7th place finish at the Sochi Olympics in 2014, the duo thought a podium finish would be out of the question. This medal win is also a historic one as it marks the first time an openly gay figure skater has won a medal in that competition. Nan Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler is heading to Australia this week. Fiddler's been invited to address an international forum on Indigenous mental health. As one of the keynote speakers at the event, he'll be making a presentation on the suicide crisis among Canada's Indigenous communities. Chief Fiddler previewed his presentation for members of the media Friday. He says his discussion will focus on identifying causes of mental health issues in Indigenous youth and developing long-term strategies to tackle those root causes.
They're babies, really. And why would a 10-year-old or 11-year-old even contemplate taking or harming themselves or taking their lives? I think collaboration is so key. We know that we cannot do it alone, even though we have some support now from governments, whether it's provincial or federal. We're always looking out for alliances and partners that want to work with us, and I think this will be a very unique opportunity for us to do that.
Fiddler leaves for Perth, Australia on Sunday, with the conference beginning Wednesday. Confederation College is facing a major financial shortfall. College officials say the deficit, which could reach over $10 million, is due in large part to last fall's province-wide faculty strike. As Shane Pasquino reports, they're being forced to look at some drastic measures to help balance the books.
5-week strike that went from early October to mid-November of last year has had some lasting effects on Confederation College. The Board of Governors at the college approved an $80.2 million operating budget for the 2017-2018 fiscal year. That's left the college facing a deficit of $9 to $11 million. Much of the shortfall is being attributed to tuition refunds paid to students who chose to drop out after the strike ended. Another major factor is the newly passed Bill 148, which has resulted in several part-time staff being moved to full-time status. College President Jim Matter says he supports the intent of that legislation, but Matter says due to the small size of Confederation College, they simply don't have the revenue to pay part-time employees on a full-time scale.
Because we are small, we have a significant number of part-time people who actually are paid a lower scale than full-time people. We can't do that anymore, according to Bill 148. It would almost double the compensation for the people who are part-time. That's wonderful. In fact, I love the idea of paying people more. The problem is that we don't have the revenues to do that.
Matter also says unless they receive some extra financial support to deal with the issue, the college could suffer some major losses.
I love to keep our programs, love to provide that access, but if we don't get funding for the government to cover that major deficit, we're going to lose services, we could easily lose campuses, and we would easily lose programs.
Matter hopes that it doesn't come to the closing of any campuses and that they can find revenue in other areas. One of their main revenue builders over the last decade has been the growth in international students. It's grown from just 40 students to over 750. Shane Pasquino, TBT News.
And that's going to do it for this week's edition of Northwest Newsweek. I'm Leanne Evans. Thanks for being with us, and be sure to tune in next time.